We're here at the VMware Public Sector Innovation Summit with Bryan Thomas, Executive Vice President at Worldwide Technology. Bryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me this morning. Great to be here.
So let me start by asking, how do you see agencies and the American public benefiting from the government's adoption of multi-cloud IT strategies?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to start with the American public, because I think that's probably today's most important thing that we should be thinking about. You know, we have an abundance of information about the amount of money that we're spending on technology and the government is spending in general. And I think the American public is very excited about the shared services that cloud and multi-cloud architecture can provide. Think about what you care about, what I care about, right? Public safety, right? And first and foremost, as we move through the cities, as we commute, as we work, how are we safe? How is our family safe, right? I think that's very important to think about what edge capabilities of driving that data closer to citizen services. You think about healthcare, education, public utilities, right? How's our kids being educated? How is that changing in an environment with a global pandemic? And how our organizations and our education systems reacted to that? If you think about utilities, when power outages go out, that's created potentially from cybersecurity, right? Which creates a massive public concern, right? Think about transportation and oil and gas and all the data requirements to keep our nation running at top peak, and how that transpires the government is to better serve the constituents of all the areas and communities in which we work and live.
And then how do you see public sector agencies taking more innovative approaches to things like cybersecurity and data protection using the cloud?
Yeah, well, it's all, as I spoke before, it's all about the data, right? So if we can categorize and organize the data in such things as data pools and data lakes, it gives us an opportunity to capture all those data sources and give the right person the right information at the right time to figure out what is the flow of data which is appropriate when adversaries are trying to conflict our environments and create change and complexities based on threatening that data. So organizing the data and then providing that analytics and that space to be able to let the cyber operators perform their task in an automated fashion can only be done if you're pulling that information together, and this multi-cloud architecture will allow us to do that.
And then how do you see digital workforce enablement helping government agencies really improve how they attract and retain skilled employees?
Yeah, that workforce productivity is something that we've been after for quite some time, right? The extendability of our nation's capital, and everybody has to come in and drive that traffic that you and I know and love so much. The ability to find those talented next generation resources that may live in the Midwest or down south or in the West Coast, and allow for those talented millennials and others to join this nation's workforce. Not necessarily be so codependent on location, but be codependent on a mission, an objective, and doing something that empowers greater than making money, right? Because typically when you graduate from college, you're focused on the money. I think there's a change in what we're seeing in individuals' excitement around doing public safety and public service, but we've got to give them an opportunity that they don't have to live in a certain area. They don't have to reside in a certain location. And I think through that pandemic that we went through, I think the extendability of the technology gave us an opportunity that maybe sped us up to where we really wanted to go. It is an unfortunate circumstance that created it, but it drove technology to create a capability that we knew we had, and I think there was just a general concern about how we do it in a safe and effective manner.
And then lastly, public sector agencies had to acquire a lot of novel IT solutions pretty quickly during the pandemic, as you kind of alluded. But how are those efforts shaping longer-term IT acquisition strategies?
Yeah, acquisition strategy. Well, I don't know if my lifetime it's going to change as fast as any of us want to, but as an example today, the federal, state, and local organizations have more money than they've ever had before. And so it's not a money problem, it's getting access to those dollars to be able to be dependent on the programs and projects that need to continue to flow. And I think we have a massive time gap between when the dollars come to those organizations and when they can actually deploy them to work. And let's take the global supply chain situation we have. Now, if you're buying a lot of SaaS and it's software based, semiconductors don't matter. But as we all know, it has to ride on something. So as the aging inventory of our global fabric footprint of our infrastructure continues to slow down, and we want to provide the capabilities that these SaaS technology companies like VMware and so much can offer, we've got to figure out how to change the policies where we saw commercial organizations get in front of the power curve of the global supply chain demand and really acquire products faster through the process to be able to fulfill the demand. Now, our policies that we have in federal and state and local don't allow us to spend based on a global supply chain concern, right? So I think there's a lot of lessons learned that happened, one, through the pandemic, through to the slowing down of the manufacturing facilities, and three, really what the demand, because technology became so important for us to have that extendability we spoke about, to meet the demand to our constituents and ultimately the federal government.
Well, Bryan Thomas, thank you so much for joining us here at the VMware Public Sector Innovation Summit.
Thank you for having me.